Greetings and a warm welcome to Member Musing, brought to you by the Middle East and North Africa's Leisure and Attractions Council. This captivating video podcast series is your gateway to engaging dialogues regarding the MENA leisure and entertainment sector. We also shed light on pioneering products, offerings and accomplishments of our esteemed Menalac members. Joining me on today's episode is water park manufacturer leader, WhiteWater. A big welcome to Jeremy Gray, Vice President of Business Development Middle East, and Matt Spurgeon, Performances Services Manager. Gentlemen, thank you for both appearing on Member Musing today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, WhiteWater, as I've just mentioned, is a leading global designer and manufacturer of water park products and active family attractions. The company began over 40 years ago with the intention to create places where families unite and make joyful, lasting memories. Jeremy, tell me, what makes WhiteWater unique? And what do you both feel are the company's highlights over its 40 years in operation?
Sure, and thanks very much. I'll start then. So what's great about WhiteWater is it's the history, which was actually over in Canada. So set up by our founder, Jeff Chutter, who originally had a financial background, and he decided he was going to set up a water park in Canada. And the over the first couple of years of operating a water park, he realized he was buying water slides from different vendors around the world and wasn't really getting the quality that his guests desired, and he felt that there could be an opportunity to build his own slides. So he went out and he started to build a first couple of water slides himself. And to cut a long story short, he realized there was more money to be made in selling water slides and attractions than there was essentially in the water park industry operation side back in the time. He started then to build slides for his competition, and then he decided to sell his own water park and focus purely on being a water slide manufacturer and distributor. That was back in 1980, which is now grown to say, like you mentioned, to become the world's leading provider of aquatic experiences. In the Middle East then.
At the time, Jeremy, what was the competition like for WhiteWater 40 years ago?
Yeah, it's obviously the industry was in its infancy at that point. Very basic kind of slides, just if you imagine just a tube on a hill, that was kind of as simple as that. Really, it wasn't anything more complicated than that a lot of the time. So it was absolutely in its birth, the infancy. The theme park world had started to move on a little bit, but the kind of water park world was still quite basic. So there wasn't a huge amount of competition, particularly for higher quality slides, which were longer and more durable. They had that more long-term value to them, which is actually a value that WhiteWater holds to this day. It's around kind of creating long-term products that you get a lot more kind of long-term value for money and return on investment from. As an aside, though, but yeah, that's kind of what the market was like then. And then the industry in this part of the world then took off about 25 years ago, I think it was. I think WhiteWater was the first kind of big water park. Which, have you ever been to WhiteWater?
Not yet.
Not yet. Got to put it on your road map. But it's obviously probably was at the time when they started that kind of development to Dubai, kind of really iconic leisure attraction, still is to this day. That was our first customer in the region, and then the Atlantis Water Park Aqua Venture came online in 2008. I think that was on the Palm. As Water World followed, Laguna followed, a lot of hotel developments followed after that. In the last couple of years, you've got some huge water parks like Marial in Doha coming online. You've got Qiddiya in Saudi Arabia now coming online in the next couple of years too. The bar is constantly being raised in this part of the world. So WhiteWater is very lucky to be here, I have to say, first and foremost. But it's I think we've really helped shape the industry over in this region.
What do you think has kept you as the leader, sort of globally and sort of in the region? Matthew, maybe Matt, you can chip in? Maybe it's your thoughts as performance as services manager. What are some of your highlights and what do you get to do in your role? And what do you think WhiteWater offers the region?
One of my focus points is customer service after sales. So with that, you're not always dealing with the happiest customer per se, because they have come across a challenge and it's my job to solve it for them, right? So what WhiteWater does well, we have an actually really robust customer service software that captures all the information from when the customer contacts me. I'm able to provide inputs into a database that collates and collects everything, and it provides visibility. Since our office is so small, it provides visibility across the organization. So we have departmental leads for customer service that are in Vancouver, which is where a majority of kind of some of the feedback and answers I'll get for the customer reside there. So it's very important that that software is robust, has good information, and then the committees that it goes to, I provide quality input by interacting with the customer. So customer service and making sure that we're looking at total quality management from when we deliver a new product to then how I take care of it afterwards, and how do I help the customer provide them the answers that they may need.
And through that feedback, Matt, do you tend to change things in terms of the product, the way that they're manufactured?
Yes.
Or
yeah. So a big part of what I'm trying to do, because I come from 12 years of operational and maintenance background, is I want to make sure I drill down, I dig until we get root cause analysis. So on site with the customer, we have what's called variance committees as well. And then we have a non-conformance reporting system. So if there are issues, the information is going to relevant stakeholders, to where on the back end for the next project, if we find an issue or a concern, that is not duplicated, because then we don't want to just keep repeating and frustrating customers possibly, right? So again, from a total quality management system, that's where WhiteWater, I think, sets itself apart.
That's really interesting. Matt, yeah, absolutely, Jenny.
Yeah. And I think this is going back to your first question, actually, on what kind of makes WhiteWater different. It's people like Matt. Let's kind of say what it is. You know, Matt's been in the industry for 12 years. He's worked in Dubai for 12 years, or what he's been and seen and knows everything from what's included in a water park. How do you run it? And Matt's just one example of the people that we have in our business who have lived and breathed water parks. So you have Jamie Charlesworth, our general manager. You know, he ran Alton Towers Water Park. He ran Wahoo Water Park in Bahrain. He's worked for Iman. He's worked inside these organizations. He's worked for Seven in Saudi. There's various people across the region that we have managed to recruit internally within WhiteWater, because they know what it takes to not just build a park and run it, but to maintain it, to keep the quality levels up, to keep the customer service levels up. And that, I think, is something that WhiteWater is really focused on over the years, is to have that operator background, I guess you call it, that to bring those kind of skill sets internally. So when we're designing a new park, you know, the people who actually were designing it used to work in a park. Great, that's a good place to start if you're going to design a new water park, right? If you're going to be maintaining your park, you know, you want to have confidence in your supplier network that they kind of know the problems that you're having day to day, which is where people like Matt come in. So I think that's key. And then the second part of that is where we're different than maybe to some of our competitors. Again, back to your first question of why we've been successful in the Middle East, is because we have people here. You know, we have a big office in Dubai, from marketing and business development people like myself, to designers, to engineers, to project managers, to financial people, to senior leaders who can then down to installation, construction staff, maintenance support, and after service kind of care teams. So we have essentially a full business here, which is quite unique compared to some of our competition who are having to go back to HQ in different places, whether it be east or west, to kind of get things done. Our customers know that they can have all of the kind of contact points in the time zone, sorting out problems, when they happen, being responsive. And that's, I think, the big reason that WhiteWater has been successful. It's people like Matt.
Thanks, Jim.
Sorry to blow your trumpet, Matt, but you're not going to do it yourself. So
no, and I think there are so many amazing people, even heroes, some we might say, working within the industry, absolutely experts, that the both of you have mentioned are super important, because when you think about it, the whole of the leisure and attractions industry, if we look behind the scenes, there's so much going on. And this is why I love this podcast. I love having guests like yourselves that enlighten me and the audience as to the real details of how to bring to life a family entertainment centre, or something VR, or a water park. So while we're sort of getting into those details a little bit more, can you tell me as briefly as you can, as unfortunately we don't have too long on this episode, can you give us a small insight as to the huge process of starting a water park, from the very idea, the exciting idea and the inception of it, to having those first guests through the doors, and onto the product? There's so much fun to be had, but there has to be so much effort involved.
Completely, yeah. I think because WhiteWater's been doing for, say, 40 plus years, it's hopefully got this process down to a fine art now, because it can take a long time. And I work on projects that are 2, 3, 5 years, into their evolution, and they haven't actually built anything yet. There are other projects, obviously, it can be much quicker, but it's all to do with kind of what we look at as this full source services solution. So we have, early on in the conversations then with a new prospect, will be around, what's the feasibility look like for what you want to do? Like, do you have land? Do you have money? What's your ambition? What's your target market? Have you got those kind of boxes ticked? I think a lot of people will go, I want to build a water park and I want something big and shiny, and then I'll figure out how to make money from it afterwards. Our approach is, well, let's take a step back. Dubai, for example, right now has got quite a lot of water parks. If you're going to do something, how's it going to be different? You're not going to spend the same sort of money as some of these big guys have spent. So how do you kind of, think about what you want to do? Or you're an existing park and you want to do an expansion? Great. What are you trying to add to your property? The process then goes through, ultimately, say, a consultation phase to start off with. What's your business case and plan? And then we then have a design team. And then the design team will work then with the client to understand, types of rides, types of experiences that venue needs. If it's a new park, then there's a mix of what we call rides and attractions. So you want some thrill rides, you want some kids rides, you want some family rides, you want some the relaxation areas, you want some maybe a bit more high thrill elements like extreme rivers or big drop capsules, whatever it may be. Where's your budget? Obviously, that's another key consideration when it comes to designing that park. Not necessarily do it all in phase 1, for example, is a big thing as well. Break down that design process into build a national park, generate some revenue, reinvest the profits from that into expanding your park down the line. So it's those kind of first questions. And then we then go through an engineering process, manufacturing all of the equipment. We then build and ship it on site. We have an installation team needed, or a client can install it themselves. And then we flip it to people like Matt then around the kind of the project management and the maintenance, to ensure that those products are looking shiny and new and well maintained for as long as possible. And therefore you get that overall kind of, I hate this phrase, soup to nuts, but the idea is like we can kind of lead the client and help the client all the way through that journey. We don't build the entire park for our client, so we will recommend other suppliers, MEP suppliers, landscapers, all that kind of stuff, to help with the overall build, so they can actually get to the end point of opening up a successful park, and bringing their dreams to life, really.
So many steps, and you probably missed out some, Jeremy.
Probably, I won't miss a load of steps, but that's
And this is
correct,
why, as you've said, it's so important to have people who are knowledgeable, have that experience, and that you can just sort of turn it around as fast as you can from your end as a designer and manufacturer. For the client. Obviously, sometimes there are external factors which delay a project that no one can do anything about or foresee. I'd love to know, Matt, Jeremy, what would you say is the most exciting part of the process, and what is the most difficult, most challenging of a process of building a product or a larger kind of water park?
I can chime in, I think, on what would be difficult, but I see a positive spin on it happening in the Middle East. So having the right stakeholders from your concept and design phase, okay? Because once you start to reach build, and then you go into operations and mature operations, if you want to change anything physically, that's where your cost is going to increase exponentially. So that's where you find people that have experience, but also experience in this region, okay? You need to understand how business is quote unquote done in the Middle East, because people see value engineer, and a lot of people don't truly use that term correctly. They see value engineering as, hey, I can save money, but value engineering means I'm going to make it fit for use without exceeding expectations. But I think people sometimes see that as I have the liberty to go cheap on something and save money. And that's where having the right stakeholders in the room from that design and concept phase will help thwart things like that from happening, because that will just impact your life cycle cost, your operational cost of that park. And then especially when it comes to headcount as well, you can control headcount with good design and good concepts up front. Jeremy, if you had anything to add,
that's a much more sensible answer I was going to mention. But I think I'll answer your question, but it would be the best bit about designing a park from a client's point of view is getting out there and going to other water parks, because it doesn't matter if a client's never built a water park before or is an absolute industry expert. They all need to go and ride rides, and we actively encourage any prospect or client, go and ride rides. Go to Atlantis, Dubai, it's the biggest water park in the world. Go and ride the rides. Go and ride our rides. Go and ride competitive rides. Come back and tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Because that is the most valuable thing when it comes to that design phase. Because then when they're investing, millions of dollars into attractions, that they can feel it. They know what their guests are going to get. So that's super important. It also helps them differentiate between Boomerango, for example, a super popular ride in Atlantis, and competitors' products. They can see it, feel it, understand it, see guest reactions in the flesh, rather than just looking at pictures on a screen or on a marketing material. So that's definitely the best bit, I think, is to encourage guests to get out to parks to ride rides.
Yeah, I can totally understand, putting yourself in the shoes of the guest and as the consumer. And if there's something that you aren't fully enjoying, how could you make that better for your product or in your water park? And then you can build the most fabulous experience for yourself, but of course for all of those guests. Matt, you made a really great point about when we talk about differences, between regions. You're a global designer and manufacturer, so you work with clients all over the world, theme parks that are based all over the world, and so we talk about maybe these differences between regions, and it's not just the families of Dubai prefer these type of rides compared to the families in Canada. It's a little bit more business orientated in terms of the differences. Like you mentioned, it's about how you discuss things in a room, and perhaps some of the steps are different regionally. Are you able to discuss a little bit more about regional differences, if we perhaps think about what does it take to be successful in the Middle East and North Africa, for example? You know, anything that you haven't already mentioned you think would be key to know?
Example, North America, South American water parks would probably have a 4 or 5 month maximum operational cycle for 1 year, right? Middle East, 365 days a year. So when you look at that difference, I think of maintenance. Okay, when can I maintain these big, beautiful new rides that I've got? And to me, again, I'm just going to go back to design and the right stakeholders in the right room, the right operators. That needs to be decided at that phase too, because you can have something great installed, designed, operating, but if you're not going to take care of it, I'll use the analogy of a new car. It will degrade over time, and then it's not going to look good. It's not going to operate well. So that's a big difference I see. And there are some operators that I would give a lot of credit to. They still do annual park shutdowns. They may share a property with a hotel. The hotel doesn't like that because then they have to answer to the guest, right? But when you invest that amount of money into those assets, they need to be maintained, right? And then they need to be safe. So that's the biggest difference that I see. Your operational cycles on your equipment is probably 2 or 3 times that from a counterpart in North America. So that's something that definitely needs to be addressed and taken into account.
Sounds brilliant. You know, that we can have a water park open, as you say, all year round, but because of that, it's also quite a challenge as well. Jeremy, anything you would add to that about the regional differences, or why do you see the water parks in this region, you know, as a success?
I think the thing that jumps out is that the whole of the Middle East, it has this one-upmanship. It's all about big glamour and world records and that kind of mentality across the region is not an excuse when it comes to building theme parks and water parks and attractions. You know, you have the biggest indoor theme park in the world, right? You have the biggest water park in the world. It's all about the records and that kind of stuff, and it's about that wow factor to differentiate itself from another. So I think if you go to water parks, you know, back in Europe where I'm from, or probably North America, there's probably less to do with that kind of try to become the world's biggest or the world's highest or the region's biggest or the region's highest or the fastest or something. So I think that's a big thing. There's always that desire to have not just differentiated products. I think all water parks want to be different, but actually create that record-breaking kind of attraction along the way. And I think what we try to support that. Obviously, we can't just keep building bigger and bigger and higher. We like to. Obviously, we're making money when people want to do that kind of stuff, but it's not necessary for everybody. Because it's actually understanding what are all of the other projects in the region doing. And because we have such good presence here, we know what's coming down the line that maybe not be public knowledge right now. We know that a park in Abu Dhabi is planning to do A, B, and C rides. So let's not go and put those A, B, and C attractions in a park in Dubai or in Riyadh, because they're just going to be duplicating, you know, another client, ultimately their competitor. So that is, I think, one example of a partnership that we try and bring to this. Because yes, the Middle East has actually got a small market, again, if you compare it to North America. So it is really important that we are trying to help our clients as much as we can. Obviously, a lot of the time it's under NDA, but we will maybe lead a client into a slightly different direction if we think there's going to be something that they would be better off investing in, for example. So yes, we're trying to set them up for that long-term success through a bit of a partnership approach, because say the region's not that big.
On the note of success, and you know, the region continuing to grow with that desire, that there's so much want for more leisure and attractions, whether that's a theme park or an FEC or a water park. Really quickly, gentlemen, before we end this episode, what briefly, what opportunities, but also challenges do you see across the whole MENA region's water park sector in the coming years?
Matt, do you want to go?
Yeah, so one thing I know that's been picking up, I mean, obviously a lot in the past 5 to 7 years, it's technology. From a maintenance perspective, and integrated work management systems, asset tracking with RFID, again, so I'm going to harp back on the concept and design stages, embedding those into the project and into the deliverables. You're going to be able to track, maintain your assets. I think manufacturers and suppliers can also help provide depreciation life cycles for rides too. It helps for better master planning long term. So technology can do a lot from us, from tracking the lifespan of your rides. So and there's lots of technology. The problem's going to be is integrating all the different technologies that people would want to use at one park. And then would there ever be one that could bring it all together? There are software suites out there, I believe, that can, but that's going to be up to the people that get paid more than me.
Absolutely. We are seeing, technology being used across all industries. Recently, I went to buy something and I ordered it online, and I went to the store and I just put in the QR code and it came to me. No person was needed, it was just handed to me and a little parcel. And I thought that was brilliant. And it makes me think about the people behind that technology and how it's trying to help a business and then an industry be more seamless. But it's not about technology in the leisure and entertainment sector. It's not about technology necessarily supporting the fun that consumers are experiencing. It's helping the other aspects of a business and of the sector, like you said, the maintenance, and even maybe customer service and how we deal with consumers and guests. Jeremy, anything you would add to that before we go?
I think the technology piece is interesting. We have a product called Vantage, and what Vantage does is twofold. It's an operations tool to support some of the things that Matt was talking around about, collating information on rides, about time, throughputs of rides, where guests are moving within a park, which is not to do with necessarily the guest. It's to do with supporting the operations team to run a better park, find lost children, that kind of stuff. The other part of it is to actually allow guests to walk around a park and buy things through a wearable rather than having their phone on them or money on them. They can go and they can buy ice creams, they can rent cabanas, they can collect towels, they can open their locker through a wearable band. So we brought that into a few water parks recently, and we're very proud of it. And that then is absolutely about giving the guest a better experience. It's about generating more money for the park. So that, again, is, I think, a way where technology is now coming more into the internal parts of the park. Parks always use technology for ticketing and all that kind of stuff and marketing to get people in beforehand. But what about when they're in the park? How are you making sure they have a better day, spending more money, and you understand them more as a demographic? Yeah, I think that's a big one. Yeah. And surf's another big market. You think about it, that's another big market that now is coming online. We're seeing inland surfing being a more and more popular opportunity for developers. It takes quite a bit of land, but ultimately there is definitely a trend now globally for bringing the sport of surfing out of the ocean into guaranteed waves in city developments, in more urban developments. I think we have a product called Endless Surf that is absolutely flying right now, with pools being opened in Munich, in Saudi, and a few others already kind of breaking ground around the world. And we see that as being a big market now for Europe and the Middle East in the future years, is jumping on the fact that surfing is I think it's the fastest growing sport in the world. I think surfing is. So I think that what our investment into Endless Surf there is going to change the game a lot.
Gosh, there's so much more we could talk about, and I could pick your brains all day, gentlemen. But we're going to leave it there for now. Thank you so much. Your expertise, we've already spoken about it, particularly Matt, but it really shines through, and you can imagine how safe a client would be in WhiteWater's hands. I know you've got lots of projects in the works at the minute, and we'll look forward to hearing about those in the future across the MENA region that I've already said is growing, and there's so much excitement around it, and so much innovation that we'll see and that we've already kind of touched upon. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much. See you soon.
As usual, links to WhiteWater's website and social media pages will be in the description section of this episode, where you will readily find more details about the company and their amazing projects. I encourage you to also check out Menalac's website and social handles for various information and opportunities across the MENA region's leisure and entertainment industry. Finally, thank you to our audience for tuning into this episode of Member Musing. I'll be back soon with another key discussion about the beloved Middle East and North Africa Leisure and Attractions Council. Goodbye for now.